Well, ladies and gentlemen, CNN just gave a 6-minute monologue on Donald Trump and his victories, where they're now admitting that, yes, after the ceasefire, which we know the Middle Eastern situation, it could have been very bad. Trump, I mean, you could argue with the potential setback to the Iranian nuclear program, with it's been reported, verified, all of the centrifuges within Fordo, which that is their nuclear palace. Iranians keep it very secret. It's a huge deal. They're all destroyed. The conversion center in Estevan is destroyed. 0 American casualties. 13 out of the 14 missiles from Iran intercepted, the other one falling harmlessly. This is amazing. There's been no real retaliation from Iran. There was at least against the United States, there was retaliation against Israel, but there's been no retaliation against the United States. Trump immediately negotiates the ceasefire. We'll see if it holds up, but with where we're at right now, the picture, they can't even argue anything with the economy. This is amazing. The tariff situation, now we're raking in $22-23 billion. We have the updated new trade deal with China. And we've got serious pressure on Powell to actually cut the rates. That's what we need. We need the fuel for the economy now. We've got everything. We've got the real wages. You look at the blue collar real wage growth, the highest in 90 years. And so CNN is looking at this, and some top liberals, like you look at Cenk Uygur and others, they're like, this is crazy. Trump's doing an amazing job. I have to admit it. And it's just, you can't help but notice what a good position Trump has in terms of where this administration is heading in Q3, Q4, Q2 estimated GDP growth plus 4.5. They were concerned about the contraction. Well, the contraction was really only because Trump stopped spending and stopped printing like Biden. And the tariffs also played into that, absolutely, but it was a necessary contraction to make sure we tamed inflation. Now we've got the tame inflation. We have the crude oil back down because there's a ceasefire. And this is just, the energy's back down. The true inflation's going to fall under 2% again. It's expected. The core inflation, 3 out of the first 4 months, lower than expected. There's a report, lowest since 2021, really before the crazy Biden spending. I mean, it's so many good things that CNN's like, I mean, we have to be honest, this is amazing. And what Trump is doing right now is something that we're going to see. I mean, with the economy, we know approval rating based on economy. You look at all of the indicators. I mean, we are going to have an amazing Q3, a great Q4. The liberal narrative is still talking about a recession. They're broken. They have no indicators. They've got nothing. Their indicator was GDP. Look at the Atlanta Fed's estimate. It's plus 4.5. We have plus 4.5 GDP growth to make up for the contraction in Q1. In Q2 with 0 rate cuts. Imagine what happens with the rate cuts, and now Powell's getting pressured, and now Powell is in meetings saying, yes, I'm admitting I made a mistake. We really need to cut it. That's what he's basically saying. He's starting to change his tune on the economy. Now that we have the trade deal with China, where we tariff them at 30% rate, we're raking in $22-23 billion. And then they say, well, the consumers pay it. Well, really, because it doesn't show up in the inflation data. No. The corporations are paying it. Where does it show up in the inflation data? Why is the inflation not up significantly if you're saying consumers are paying $23 billion in tariff revenue that we make? It's liberal lies. They've got nothing left. That's why CNN's like, we're just going to stop with the crap and we're going to cut the shit. Trump's amazing. So I'm going to play some of this. It's 6 minutes, but I mean, this is just...
The mission was carried out with stealth and with precision. There were no American casualties. And while Congress is divided after receiving briefings on the extent of the damage, I'm sure that we've derailed Iran's nuclear program, at least temporarily. And there's some valuable deterrent effect for America's adversaries who witnessed last week's exercise.
That's a good underrated point. That's true. I'm not going to stop it because it's, but that is right. And he is right. Think about what we did to their nuclear program relative to what it cost. There's all these people that are like, well, Trump simps for Israel, but the general thing is that Iran is an enemy of the United States. They were in some way. I mean, you don't have a plant like Fordo without planting a nuclear bomb. You don't enrich to 60% without planting a nuclear bomb. We've severely hurt that. If all of the centrifuges in Fordo are destroyed, that is their main nuclear facility that it took them 10 years to build. that the United States specifically designed these specific MOBs with the stealth bombers, the B-2s, to penetrate Fordo, which they did. And then they're like, oh, they moved their enrichment. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. There's a long process in terms of creating a nuclear bomb. If you destroy, you know how the infrastructure it takes to actually enrich uranium? You know how many centrifuges? So we've destroyed all the major centrifuges. Sure, they've got other facilities, but even now their conversion facility, at least the part above ground, is completely destroyed. So we wasted such little. There was such a little investment to completely derail their nuclear program. Zero effect to U.S. bases. 0 U.S. troops lost. And the only thing they have is, well, Trump just cut to Israel, and that's why he did it. Well, look, the United States is also an enemy of Iran. And look, I agree. I think they were fear-mongering with them having a nuclear bomb. But you don't enrich to 60%. You don't have an underground palace like Fordo without wanting a nuclear bomb, let's be honest.
Then, last Tuesday, President Trump left the White House en route to Europe. At the time, there was a question as to whether Israel and Iran would honor a ceasefire. That caused the president to offer the most unfiltered, non-controversial, direct words that I can recall anybody ever saying about the Middle East.
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Cut to The Hague, where he arrived for NATO meetings and was able to wrangle an agreement from our allies to more than double their defense spending target from 2% of gross domestic product to 5% by 2035. Also, while at NATO, in a press availability, he did something rare for Trump and I found rewarding. He showed empathy. It came in an exchange with a Ukrainian journalist who said that her husband was a soldier.
Yeah, no, he's right. With Ukraine and Russia, it seems like maybe there's an avenue for some type of peace agreement. We'll see. But he is talking about supplying Ukraine with Patriot missiles. And the reason is because, Russia doesn't want to do a peace deal. You've got to kind of force it, but by helping Ukraine. Otherwise, Russia's just going to continue having their war, so you have to it's the idea of we need strength for Ukraine to hopefully force Russia into some type of peace agreement because they'll feel at least a little bit more threatened rather than the current situation they have. Although it is a little bit more complicated than that. But, the point of it is NATO ups their defense spending from 2% to 5%, which is crazy considering they complained about Trump calling them out back in his first term about even paying the 2% of the GDP. Now they're up to 5%.
He's there now. They do want to have the anti-missile missiles, okay, as they call them, the Patriots. And we're going to see if we can make some available. I wish you a lot of luck. I can see it's very upsetting to you. So say hello to your husband, okay?
Also in that presser, he was more reflective and respectful than usual of our allies.
They want to protect their country, and they need the United States. And without the United States, it's not going to be the same. And I left here differently. I left here saying that these people really love their countries. It's not a ripoff, and we're here to help them protect their country.
Back at home, Trump claimed that he's reached a trade deal with China and soon expects the same with India. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick told Bloomberg that the deal was signed earlier this week. China's Commerce Ministry said Friday the two sides had further confirmed the details of the framework. Of course, Trump's initial imposition of tariffs wreaked havoc on American markets back in the spring. But now the markets have rebounded and grown. The S&P 500.
Yeah, and it's very key people understand this. People be like, well, the tariffs derailed the market. No, the tariffs actually brought inflation down indirectly. If you understand how markets work and with how badly that, they were derailed, we were able to bring inflation down by a decent amount extremely quickly because of that. And on top of that, you can say, well, we're back to where we were before the tariffs, but we have low inflation with 0 rate cuts. It did not take any rate cuts to get this. So imagine when we get the rate cuts. So we have 0 rate cuts right now. We have low tamed inflation that's been hovering around 2%. That's the true inflation. The core inflation's 2.3, 2.4. That's with 0 rate cuts. So it's a record high S&P 500 with 0 rate cuts yet. There's no Democrat crutch to where when Biden entered, obviously with the COVID stuff, they spent like crazy to artificially juice the economy, artificially juice the S&P, which contributed to record 7%, 9% inflation. In terms of total inflation, it was 20% over just like a 2-year stretch, or I think it was the 4-year stretch, it was 20%. But the point is the economic outlook is so much different when you're talking about where we're at right now because of the tariffs with lower inflation, because of the market turmoil, which caused the lower inflation. Now we've completely rebounded. And by the way, on top of that, we have the low inflation, which is not impacting the tariffs, obviously, to a degree, are not impacting significantly higher prices within the United States because it's a competitive market, because we're a capitalist society. They have to keep their prices low. Their profit margins have to be low to be able to be competitive so they don't price themselves out of the market. And they pay the United States and we make revenue off of that. So now we're creating an extra $20 billion, $25 billion. Trump said in total $88 billion around 3.5 months since these tariffs have been in place. $88 billion. That's going to be used hopefully against the deficit. We'll see what happens with the big beautiful bill. We can dispute that. The administration would certainly dispute the fact that it's going to increase the deficit. And the reason is because it's all based on, because of how the big beautiful bill is structured, it's all based around the growth rate, the economic growth rate that we have because of the tax cuts. Yes, if you cut taxes, technically the projected revenue is going to be lower. The governmental revenue will be lower. But depending on the growth rate of the economy and the disposable income that people have that they spend, we could be looking at a better situation in terms of, and normally it's disputed, but there is the thought that because of the extra disposable income that people have using that, we could generate, even more money than we would with the taxes staying as is. We'll have to see.
NASDAQ hit record highs just yesterday. And it's not just the stock market. Inflation, the great economic fear of recent times, seems to be tamed. The rate is now reported at 2.4%, down from a high of 7% just 4 years ago. Meanwhile, blue-collar workers have seen real wage growth of 1.7% in Trump's first 5 months. This is the largest such increase in nearly 3 generations. Notwithstanding its impact on our national debt, there's also hope among some that Trump's big, beautiful bill will give further financial relief to blue-collar workers, as well as create incentives to build more factories in the U.S. Some already see this happening. For instance, General Electric has just announced that it'll invest almost $500 million in moving production of washing machines from China to Kentucky. And then there's the border. Crossings have slowed to a trickle. According to CBP's May update, Southwest border encounters have fallen to about 282 a day, a drop of 93% from last year and the lowest since the early 1960s. Perhaps the loudest cheering.
The lowest border encounter since the 1960s. They've sealed the border. There's no illegal immigration anymore. It's been eliminated. Trump has been eliminated with the presence at the border of personnel. He's eliminated illegal immigration, basically. I mean, this is what it is, down 93%.
For those border numbers is coming from America's Latino community, which might initially sound counterintuitive. On Thursday, Pew Research released an enormous...
All right, and then you guys get the gist. I mean, there is some serious, huge wins for Trump. And, I mean, this has to help with the approval. I mean, it's going to be based off the economy. If the economy continues to do well, continues to do better, with this ceasefire, you're not dealing with a geopolitical situation affecting domestic. I mean, imagine we get that ceasefire. You've got the situation now with Rwanda and Congo, and the minister saying, yes, Trump was huge. He negotiated this for us. So you have Israel, Iran. You can say, well, Trump in part started that, but it was very quick. It was only 12 days. You have... I mean, and really, Trump didn't start it, although behind the scenes they said, well, Trump was setting it up, and look, it's whatever. It was 12 days. You have the Rwanda-Congo ceasefire that was facilitated by Trump. You have the India-Pakistan ceasefire that was facilitated by the administration. And now maybe you have Russia-Ukraine as well. Imagine that comes within the next few months. Think about how bullish we would be in the market Q3, Q4 with that being done, compared to people saying it was going to spiral into World War III with 2 hot wars. That's 2 hot wars to 0 hot wars. Yes, the ceasefire between Israel and Iran is very flimsy. We'll see what happens with that. But right now, all we can say is that this looks very, very good for Trump. the deportations, you can say, should increase. I mean, we have reports of the self-deportation numbers. You combined it with the actual deportations by the administration, it's around 1 million. 1 million in 5-6 months. I mean, that's pretty good. And so that's what we're looking at right now in terms of the self-deportations. Trump has to where it's a quota. They have to at least deport 1 million people. I don't know if that's self-deportations or the physical deportations to where they remove them. I don't know if it's a combination of the two, but they are putting an onus on trying to deport more people. But this is even CNN. I mean, it's just boom, 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 boom. I mean, everything. It's everything right now with Trump, and that's why the ceasefire was so critical. That was really the only thing, based off of how we had the economy going. That's why I was so salty about that situation in the Middle East, because that's really the only thing that it's a geopolitical thing. That's the only thing that can affect what we're doing in terms of all of the indicators, all of the numbers. The rebound in Q2 GDP with 0 rate cuts. Once we get, now they're putting serious pressure on Powell, and they're telling Powell this needs to happen or you will be removed. And it's getting to the point to where he has to do it, because even liberals are saying the rate cuts need to come. It doesn't make sense why the Fed is not cutting at this point, because we have the tamed inflation. And so, listen, we'll see what ends up happening with this, but all we can say is that even CNN is coming out and saying, because of that ceasefire, that was the only thing that could derail it. We got the immediate ceasefire. And by the way, you could easily argue that was a major win for Trump, with 0 U.S. military bases in the Middle East even affected by it. The United States setting back the Iranian nuclear program. You can dispute, it's only 4 or 5 months. Well, you know what? If they destroyed all of their centrifuges with MOBs, it's very likely going to be a lot longer than that, because of the infrastructure buildup within Fordo. That's a catastrophic loss for them. It's a catastrophic loss. Now, sure, they still have enriched uranium. Some of it was moved. I'm sure some of it wasn't. If you've got a massive stockpile of it, and you're doing some type of deal, or you're trying to negotiate a deal to where Trump gives you 60 days or else, that should be moved well before 2 or 3 days. They show the aerial photo of all the dump trucks. The dump trucks were there to fill in where the ventilation shafts was, where the entrance was. That's why they were there. They were not there to move enriched uranium. The enriched uranium would have already been moved. They can't move all of their enriched uranium. That's why it's the massive stockpile. Now, whether or not it was affected by the strikes, that's to be determined. But even if you have enriched uranium, sure, you can make dirty bombs, but you're not going to get to a nuclear level if the infrastructure has been significantly affected. And even if they can, I mean, it was such a minimal action by Trump, and it didn't cause this crazy geopolitical effect to where it affected things domestically because it was so quick. It did not affect the oil. Well, the oil did shoot up, but then it came right back down. It's already back down. And so that's the real point of it. It was such a quick thing. And listen, you have to say the people were right. I mean, people said it was hopium. It was get in, get out. That's what it was. Now, again, will it lead to something bigger with Iran potentially fast tracking their nuclear program and saying we definitely need a nuclear bomb now as deterrence? We will have to see, because you could still say, well, maybe it's going to be a negative. But the point of it is, right now, it looks really, really good. And then on top of that, it's all this other stuff. There's so much great things right now when you look at just the economic. I mean, we are going to have an amazing approval rating for Trump as long as nothing happens in terms of geopolitical events. Because Trump, remember, now that we still have the 30% tariff on China, that's a new trade deal that just got worked out. We're going to work out a trade deal with India. Trump is going to be skimming a lot of these countries in terms of a lot of these tariffs are going to be around 10%. They're going to remain, because he does want to generate and have an extra revenue source for the government, especially considering we're lowering taxes for everyone. We have to create other revenue sources. So if we're generating $300 billion, $350 billion in tariff revenue per year, I mean, that's a significant amount. That would be 17% cut in the deficit, possibly more, because depending on what the interest rates are, we might not be paying $1 trillion to service the debt if the interest rates are lower. We expect them to be lower. Trump said today the interest rates should be 1% to 2%. If the interest rates are much, much lower, we're paying less. And they need to be lower. Trump's done everything. He totally reset the economy with the Liberation Day tariffs. He brought them back down. And because at a certain point, it's like there's all these different financial levers, and you just have to press the right one at the right time. And so not everything is going to work out perfect. So you see the initial reaction, the shock reaction, and, it ends up getting corrected. And so really that was because of the yield, the 10-year yield. But The point of it is now is that things seem to be more on track. The ceasefire happening, maybe new emerging momentum for a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, with Trump talking to Putin and saying, we need to, I don't need your help with Iran. I need your help with Ukraine. We need to come to an agreement. He's been very cordial, very nice with NATO. Now it's looking like, well, maybe the acquisition of Greenland could be on the table. I mean, this is some serious stuff for Trump. So that's just the reality. Things look great. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.